to Thakur. Thursday, November 16th, 1882. The master, Sri Ramakrishna, had come to Calcutta. In the evening, he went to the house of Raj Mohan, a member of the Brahmo Samaj, where Narendra and some of his young friends used to meet and worship according to the Brahmo ceremonies. Sri Ramakrishna wanted to see their worship. He was accompanied by M and a few other devotees. So we got Narendra, of course, is Swami Vivekananda there when he was a boy. He was about 19 at this time, I think, 19 or 20, somewhere in there. And he's a member of the Brahmo Samaj. The Brahmo Samaj was kind of not a reform movement, but it was sort of moving traditional Hindu practices more toward a Christian ideal. They only believed in the formless God. They would meet and do their singing and whatnot together. So it was kind of taking a churchy sort of format to it. And Ramakrishna was very close to quite a few members of this Brahmo Samaj. So he wants to go and take a look at what they're up to, what they're doing. He says the master was very happy to see Narendra and expressed a desire to watch the young men at their worship. Narendra sang, and then the worship began. One of the young men conducted it. He prayed, "O Lord, may we give up everything and be absorbed in thee." Possibly the youth was inspired by the master's presence and so talked of utter renunciation. Sri Ramakrishna remarked in a whisper, "Much likelihood there is of that." Raj Mohan served the master with refreshments. So Thakur used to talk about that. It's like at another place, he adds a little bit more light to that because they had, all the women sat behind a screen in the public halls so that the men wouldn't ogle them. And so they were all sitting behind the screen, and the speaker said the same thing, may we all renounce the world completely and come to you. And the master again nudges Narendra and says, "My goodness, what's going to become of everyone behind the screen over there?" All the wives and children that are that are behind the screen. So it's that, Thakur was a man of absolute integrity. When you said something, he saw and heard what you said. And if it didn't align, he would let you know, and that's one of the major reasons. I don't like talking like that, but that's one of the big reasons that we keep the idea of the presence alive within us, because that's how we create integrity. That awareness, that presence of God, the I am within, allows you to keep your words, your mind, and your actions in alignment so that they're all saying the same thing. Because that's one of the big illusions, that's one of the big purposes of Maya, if you want to talk in those terms, all these weird ways of saying these things. But the purpose of Maya is to maintain your illusion, of separateness and control as the doer, and your independence in that. And it takes a lot of juggling to maintain that illusion. And so having the presence of the beloved within slowly makes you aware of all of the juggling that you're doing to maintain this illusion of being this personality, being this body, being a creature of time, space, and causation. So Sunday, November 19th, 3 days later, 1882, it was the auspicious occasion of the Jagadhatri Puja, the festival of the Divine Mother. Sri Ramakrishna was invited to Surendra's house in Calcutta, but first he went to the house of Mano Mohan in the neighborhood. The master was seated in Mano Mohan's parlor. He said, "God very much relishes the bhakti of the poor and the lowly, just as the cow relishes fodder mixed with oil cake. King Duryodhana showed Krishna the splendor of his wealth and riches, but Krishna accepted the hospitality of the poor Vidura. God is fond of his devotees. He runs after the devotees as the cow after the calf." The master sang, "And for that love, the mighty yogis practice yoga from age to age. When love awakes, the Lord, like a magnet, draws to him the soul." So I love little hints like that this is all couched in love. That And for that love, the mighty yogis have practiced yoga from age to age. That love is the one quest of spiritual life, to know pure and unadulterated love, to know that unconditioned isness of love. So from age to age, for thousands and thousands of years, these great yogis have arisen to send us these these words for love, for love. Ramakrishna says, as is a man's love, so is his meditation. So that's how something you can always hold before you if you're wondering, how am I doing in spiritual life? Swami Vivekananda says there's only two measures that we can use for judging our spiritual life. Does anybody remember what they are? Two of them.
How unselfish we are.
What's that?
How unselfish we are.
Excellent, Geeta. Very good. So am I unselfish? And the second one?
Love. That's
right. Excellent. Good for you, Geeta. Yeah, the second one is, am I loving? So the two aspects of love. Am I unselfish? That covers the am I focusing on taking? Am I not doing that? But then am I loving? That's the proactive. Am I flowing love outward? Not just am I absorbing everything into myself, but am I also exuding this love into the world? So are you unselfish and are you loving? Those are the two questions. If you can answer sincerely to yourself, yes, I have been unselfish, and yes, I have been loving, then you're doing well in spiritual life. That is the fruit of the spirit, as they say in Christianity. That's what it is to know the self. Right? To know you're not a body and not a mind eliminates selfishness, because it's just the limits of body and mind that cause you to need, cause you to be hungry. And so that's how this moment becomes perfect. Even when the body is hungry and the mind is moody, to the soul who knows its identity, immortal and separate from that as the container of all things, the moment is perfect, even though conditions may not be. But conditions, the soul has nothing to do with conditions. It's just, to know that you're the dreamer. It doesn't matter what the weather is in your dream. It could be raining, pouring. You're not getting wet. And that's the nature of the world to the enlightened yogi. All hell could literally be breaking loose around you. But this is a dream within me. Everything is as it should be. Then he said, Chaitanya used to shed tears of joy at the very mention of Krishna's name. God alone is the real substance. All else is illusory. See, that's that again, bring that back to that dreamer idea. That entire world in the dream, you're doing that. It's a localized dream. It's your body, your mind, creating an entire universe for that dream. And he says that God is the only substance. One example of how the sages know that thou art that is from that relationship there. Without you, the dream disappears. There is nothing in the dream that exists independent of you. As soon as you wake up, poof, it all just, poof, it's gone, completely disappears. You were the only thing of substance. The whole rest of the dream was illusory and depended on you for its reality. And so here Thakur is telling us this whole world is illusory. The unchanging absolute at the center, that divinity, is the only substance that allows everything else to have the seeming of existence, the appearance of existence. It's God alone. God is that existence. God is that love. God is that wisdom that we use to create an illusion, to create a universe for ourselves. God alone is the real substance. All else is illusory. Man can realize God if he wants to, but he madly craves the enjoyment of lust and greed. The snake has a precious stone in its head, but it's perfectly satisfied to eat a mere frog. So that's just that. He says that a holy man is like a bee that will only land on the flowers. He will only pay attention to the beautiful and the good, and he'll fly from one flower to the next to get his nectar of the divine. Whereas the common man, is like a fly. It'll land on the poop, it'll land on the flower, it'll land in the oil, it'll land in the trash can. It doesn't care where it gets its enjoyment from. And that's the distinction between a worldly man and a holy man, is where are you picky about where you get your enjoyment from? The man of wisdom goes only to the self, to that within, to that eternal self, because that joy, that bliss is not conditional and does not end. It is always flowing, exuding like body heat. It is the body heat of God. Bliss is the body heat of the divine. And so to become aware of that is to experience it. And to become aware of it, thought must stop. Thought must stop the illusion. Bhakti is the one essential thing, that love of God, right? That love of God, because God is love. You see, when you sit there, we've talked about this quite a bit, but I get more and more secure in it being quite true, that when you, as the bhakta, you've got an illusion of what you are, which is wrong. And you've got a concept of God, which is wrong, or at least incomplete, both of them utterly incomplete, utterly inaccurate. And we think that the merging with God means that this partial wrong idea of ourself is going to merge into this incomplete, frail concept of God, and that's where the merging happens. But see, this is the trick. Bhakta, this devotion is the one essential thing. Why? Because your inadequate concept of God is also going to be absorbed. And that inadequate concept of yourself is simultaneously going to be absorbed into what? Into love that is being caused, quote, by the existence of God and the existence of you facing each other. That naturally generates love, that naturally brings about the manifestation of the beloved. So that love that you're feeling is not a feeling. It is the presence of the divine. God is love. 1 John something or other. God is love. And so love is not a thing separate from the divine, separate from God. If you don't see God in the world, then go out and be more kind, be more loving, be more caring, and you will see God everywhere. Look for love. That's the mission. That's the real mission of the spiritual seeker, not to go convert, to go manifest love, because love is the presence of God. And so if you're not seeing God, you're not being loving. You're not expressing your natural compassion, right? 1 John 4:16, according to Walton. Thank you, Walton. Bhakti is the one essential thing. Who can ever know God through reasoning? I want the love of God. What do I care about knowing his infinite glories? One bottle of wine makes me drunk. What do I care about knowing how many gallons there are in the grog shop? One jar of water is enough to quench my thirst. I don't need to know the amount of the water there is on the earth. What's he saying there? He's saying there that there is no quantity of anything in this universe. This universe is only a thought. What quantity is there to thought? And what does that mean? That means that if you pick a good one here. I always pick on Elizabeth Taylor, but how many men does she have to divorce before she realizes that the joy of life is not in a marriage? It's like, but that's the way we are. It's like we suffer from something, and instead of learning that that's the nature of that something, that the answer is not in that something, we just think we had the wrong something. And so we go and grab another something thinking, oh, that's going to happen, you know. So I bought that Volkswagen. It wasn't really the car for me. I need a Tesla. Oh, now I've got the Tesla. Oh, no, that's not really it. I want that new Mercedes van, you know, whatever. That's how the mind works. You know, if something doesn't bring you the joy you think it should have brought you, or the joy wears out, the mind doesn't learn the lesson that that's the nature of all things of the senses. They all wear out. Thakur, you know, he did some wonderful things. You know, he loved sweets. Remember, so he asked Mathur, who was the rich man who built the temple that he worked at. He asked Mathur to fill a room with sweets and to lock him in it. So Mathur filled a whole room with sweets, and Thakur went in there and Mathur locked the door on him. And you know, so Thakur just sumptuously feasted on sweets until he got horribly ill. And he came out and he was like, see, mind, see, that's the nature of sweets. They cause illness. They do not bring about satisfaction. You know, they do not bring about happiness, contentment. And then he told Mathur, I want to put on a fancy shawl, and I want to smoke from a silver hubble bubble. And so Mathur goes and gets him those things, and he puts on the shawl and smokes from the hubble bubble. And he feels the ego that it causes in him, the pride in being dressed in a fancy way. And he gets so alarmed, he rips off the shawl and throws it on the ground and is stomping on it and is about to set fire to it. And Mathur comes and rescues it because it was a very expensive shawl. And that's all the master needed to do. He just needed to do it once because he had a pure mind. You know, he was in full, he was a master of himself. So he learned the lesson once and it was finished. That's what made him an avatar. That's what made him a direct manifestation of the beloved. You and I were like, oh, it's because the scarf was red. I really wanted a blue and a yellow one, you know. Oh, the silver hubble, I wanted a gold hubble bubble. You know, it's like, we don't learn the lesson. We just keep assuming we need more of something else, something different. And so what he's saying here, it's like going to the beach. How much sand do you have to eat to understand that sand is not good for you? Right? Do you have to go and eat the entire beach to figure out that sand is not good for you? No. You just need one little pinch of that sand in your mouth and you'll understand, no, this isn't for me. This is the way to approach the world. See what's in front of you. Calculate in your mind, discern in your mind, and understand the nature of things. Everything changing is exactly that. It changes constantly, never stopping, right? That's the nature of mind, constant change. So if you make your life building on the changing things, right? That's what that story that Jesus tells, the man, the foolish man who builds his house on the sand, right? Well, what is Jesus telling us? If you build your house in the world of the changing, if you build your identity on the contents of your mind and the state of your body and the things of the world, no, they're like sand. They shift and change constantly. You'll be happy today, and in 10 minutes, you'll be sad. You'll be content for 4 minutes. 6 minutes after dinner, you'll be overstuffed. You know, it's like, this is the nature of the world. Learn it so that you don't have to keep banging your head against the wall your whole life and suffering, wondering, why do I have to suffer so much? Because you're a thick-headed fool. Or in the words of Swami Prabhupada, you're dumb. You don't learn the lessons. So understand this. God is the only thing that is real. It is the bliss of the divine within you that is the only thing that can bring about contentment within you that will not be conditioned and subject to the world, to the changing, right? And so what is it to build our idea of self on the unchanging absolute within, on that Satchitananda, that wisdom, that bliss, that existence? That's the rock. It's the wise man that builds his house on the rock, that which does not change. Build your house on the image of the beloved that is within you. Make that your joy. Don't make it hanging out at parties with friends. Don't make it your fancy car. Don't make it your successful children. Don't make it your beautiful hair, your wonderful dresses, your beautiful shoes. Don't build your sense of self on things that are rotting already, right? Because what do we say? This world, the only thing you can have in this world is a pot of potting soil, right? A bucket of potting soil. Everything in this world, if you let it sit there long enough, will become a bucket of potting soil. So don't think that you can go get cars and houses and gold and silver, because all of it eventually will be a bucket of potting soil. So don't waste your life collecting potting soil. That's what he's saying here. That within you is the only thing of substance, the only thing that can nourish you and help you and give you the contentment and the love and the security that ego is so hungry for, because it doesn't exist. What do I care about knowing how many gallons there are in the grog shop? 1 jar of water is enough to quench my thirst. I don't need to know the amount of water there is on earth. Sri Ramakrishna arrived at Surendra's house. Many devotees had assembled there, including Surendra's elder brother, who was a judge. The master to Surendra's brother, "You are a judge. That's very good. But remember, everything happens through God's power. It is He who has given you your high position. That is how you become a judge. People think it is they who are great. The water from the roof flows through a spout that is shaped like a lion's head. It looks as if the lion were bringing water out through its mouth. But look at the source of the water. A cloud gathers in the sky and the rain falls on the roof, and then the water flows through the pipe and at last comes out through that spout." Surendra's brother, "The Brahmo Samaj preaches the freedom of women and the abolition of the caste system. What do you think about these matters?" Master, "Men feel that way when they are just beginning to develop spiritual yearning. A storm raises clouds of dust and one cannot distinguish between the different trees, the mango, the hog plum, and the tamarind. But after the storm blows over, one sees clearly. After the first storm of divine passion is quelled, one gradually understands that God alone is the highest good, the eternal substance, that everything else is transitory. One cannot grasp this without tapasya, without spiritual practice, and the company of holy men. What is the use of merely reciting the written parts for the drum? It is very difficult to put them into practice on the instrument. What can be accomplished by a mere lecture? It is austerity that is necessary. By that alone can one comprehend, right? That exercising of the will, austerity, staying as you are. I'm learning a lot about this, trying to be, I'll talk personally. I always get myself in trouble for this, but the new lessons that I'm going through in being a monk of one outside of the monastery is learning this lesson. As I live in my room here and carry on my day to day, I see how the mind slowly builds desires. It's like, you should get a bike at least. You should get a bicycle because then you can ride to the grocery store, And then it's like, you should get a car. A car would be much better. And the other day, my roommate was on the phone in the living room and I had to go through there and cook up some dinner. And I thought, wouldn't it be nice to have my own kitchen, where nobody was around and I could just go in and do my own cooking. And I just saw the nature of this world, the way that just little by little, the mind with its discontent comes up with this long list of desires that fills your future with clutter, fills your life with clutter, with an imagined purpose, I'm going to go to work and make money to get a car, I'm going to go and do this and get that. I'm going to start reading the want ads to see if I can find a bigger place. It's like that's how we get buried. That's how we stay deluded. And it's all of our choice, And so what is tapasya? Well, tapasya, from what I'm learning, it's being content with what you have. Walk to the grocery store. Yes, it takes me a half an hour to walk there. And yes, I have to carry the backpack back. But if I just accept that as normal, that's not a problem. There's no big deal there, you know. And so my landlord has offered me his car. Oh, you can take my car anytime. But I learned from that story of the sadhu that was walking in the pouring rain, and the bus comes up, and the bus driver takes compassion on the wandering monk and says, "Do you want a ride on the bus to your destination?" And the monk stands outside the door in the pouring rain. He says, "Will you pick me up every day?" And the bus driver says, "Well, no, of course not." He says, "Then I don't need a ride. Thank you." And he continues on. Why? Because that moment of comfort and that sweet ride would then become a samskara. And every time he would have to walk through the rain, he would remember, oh, if I was in the bus, how nice that was. What a good thing that was. And he would desire that bus ride forever. And so we also should do that, you know. And so I've tried to practice that. I tried to not borrow Greg's car, not borrow the landlord's car. Just accept the fact that you walk, and that's the way that is. Just accept the fact you live in a room. Just accept the fact of your life. Don't go looking for changing conditions, because God is the only substance that is real. Don't go looking for the things that slowly creep in and make you discontent and make you form a future that enslaves you to a karma, to a story, to nothing but a series of thinking as your reality. Be free in all of it. Know that you're the king, the queen. You are the beloved of the divine. You need no other definition for yourself than that. Who am I? I'm the beloved of the divine. That's who I am. We describe, that's what Nisargadatta also said. He said that the worldly man describes himself from the outside in, right? Through our possessions, through our body, through our mind. That's how we describe ourselves. We go from the outside in. Oh, I'm 58. I've got mouse-colored hair. It's sort of falling out. I got a graying beard. That's how we tell people. Oh, I like walks on the beach. I love movies. I love whatever it is. We describe ourselves by things that have not always been true. When you were a 5-year-old, you would never have been like, oh, I love walks on the beach and, a good margarita. Like, what is this nonsense of all the different ways you've described yourself? And yet the eye has remained the same, and you've been too thick-headed to see that all of the things you've described about yourself have nothing to do with yourself. You're not 28, Every time you turn around, you're a different age. How do you identify yourself by an age? You're not a gender, As a child, you didn't even know what your gender was, I did a lecture one time and I looked up, I was reading this article on child psychology. And I laughed when I found out that we don't actually know that our toes belong to us for 7 to 9 months after birth. Mm-hmm. How come you're going to use your toes to describe yourself if you didn't even know they were yours for 9 months? It's like, don't do it. Learn to see the world from the inside out. God is on the inside. And all of this is a manifestation of that. A living, breathing, constantly changing display of what perfect love is in the moment, of what perfect wisdom is in the moment, of what existence is, what isness is, right? So Thakur is saying, you don't have to know how much alcohol is in the whole bar. 1 glass is going to be fine for you. Know in this world, you have what you need at this moment. You don't need any more. Be content with what you have. Don't go buy bigger things and better things and more expensive things. Be content with what you have and use all of that freedom to silence the mind, which you already begin just by not wanting or just not desiring more. Let the mind silence. Let it become quiet. And then you become aware in that subtlety of your wealth, of your wealth.
Swami,
can I ask a question?
So actually, as you were talking about the acceptance, like we accept everything what is happening in our life and accept all the things, but But that makes me wonder, like, if we accept everything, then how will we even make any decisions in life? Don't we want some ethical like values or something, like if you have to discern, like, this is the job I don't want, I want a different job, those kind of decisions?
Yeah, no, we don't. We are ethics. The only thing you need to know about ethics is Swamiji puts it in two sentences. That which leads you to unity is virtue. That which leads you into the multiplicity is vice. That's all you need to, that's all of ethics. Every other piece, every other thing of right and wrong can be discerned from that one statement. You know, it's not that. You see, what you are is what is making the whole universe turn. It's not what you desire, it's what you are. God manifests in that silence of the ego. When the ego ceases to be, that's all that ceases to be, is the ego. So what then acts from there? Pure love acts from there. Pure wisdom acts from there. Through existence, these things manifest. And so if you were actually able to silence your mind completely, you wouldn't sit there drooling on a log, dumb. You would become a Jesus. You would become a Buddha. Because the only thing motivating you would be the love that is you. The only thing motivating you would be the wisdom that is you. You see, but the ego, when we identify with mind and that ego forms, it identifies ourselves with a body that needs to be warm and needs to be fed and needs to be bathed and needs to be cared for and enjoys all manner of pleasures. And so we become a slave serving the body. And what a slave we are to that thing. Every day I get up and I'm sitting there in the shower washing this thing off. And I'm like, good God, how many times do I have to wash this thing? Every single day I have to drag it out of bed and pull it into the shower, wash its hair and soap its body and shave its face and brush its teeth. When you start understanding what a slave you are to the body, and the mind is even worse. My goodness, the moods change from moments to moments. Now I want to drink a water. Now I'm not happy. I want to talk to Sally. No, never mind Sally. She was mean to me. I want to talk to Joe. And so you run around having to constantly be pampering your mood, instead of just being in the moment without story. And the natural thing will be just a joy of the amazement of the world flickering around you, the flash of the gem, which is God, and to see it and understand it that way. What's that?
Sorry.
No,
I
please.
had a question based off of it's really interesting that you used that Swami Vivekananda quote, because that was what my question was about. This specific quote that we just read from Thakur has always been like sort of like one that I've wrestled him on. I'm like, what do you mean by this? It seems like he is saying that this is probably, I'm saying this is my wrong interpretation and I'd like some clarification. But to me, it seems like he's suggesting that seeing in multiplicity is the end goal. Because the way he says at first there's the dust cloud and then there's no differentiation. But when things clear and settle, you begin to see things as they really are. And I'm like, well, what does this mean? And what does this mean with regards to like political movements and wanting to, I don't know. I mean, the Brahmos cause was noble. They had some odd ways of going about it, and I can see it in that context. But what about us now? Like, what does it have to do with this climate? And, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I mean that it's like your dream, the dream. I mean, you can start as many political movements as you want in the dream. Nothing changes. You're still the person asleep in bed. The thing is that all of this climate change happened because of the ego of ourselves. wanting bigger cars, more cars, faster cars. We want cool houses, we want hot houses, we want big houses. All of the troubles of the world that you propose to solve by employing ego to start movements and political ideas and ethical, dances, those have nothing to do with the world. Those have nothing to do with the condition of the world. It's egoism that has created all of the troubles and all of the problems. So go to the source. Like Gandhi says, be the change you want to see in the world. If you change, your world changes. Right? And I've told that story where I had that understanding kind of hammered into me in LA when I first moved to LA, and I thought everybody was so aloof and so unfriendly because I had sort of that idea of LA before I got there. And so I would take walks and nobody would say hi, and these beautiful people all around because we lived right there in Hollywood. And I just thought, oh, this is such an unfriendly place. And so I thought, well, I remember Thakur saying, that we should see his face in everyone. So I decided to try and practice that on my walks, that I would look at people and I would see them as Thakur, as the divine. And that when I spoke to them, I would speak to Thakur, not to a stranger. I would speak to Thakur in the stranger. And I did that for a couple of weeks. And I was standing at a stoplight one day waiting for the white man to let me across the street instead of the red man stopping me on the sidewalk. And this guy just started talking to me. I was like, oh my gosh, that's a first. But you see, because I was trying to see Thakur in everybody, that took away my own haughty protective layer of like, oh, these people are so unfriendly. That if you walk around with that mood, you are creating your own barrier to their friendliness. But if you walk around with an open face, recognizing you're beloved in everybody, you're looking at people, you're smiling nicely at them. When you talk to them, you're being very, very earnest. You're being very open. You're not pretending. You're not putting on your happy face or your Vance face or whatever face you have, that is your presentation to the world. You're being earnest and sincere, and the world changes. Your world will suddenly become more loving to you. It will not seem like the world needs more love. So this is the way to change. That is what spiritual life is. Change this, eliminate that ego, and climate will take care of its own problem. Climate change will be undone with everybody not needing to run out and buy new cars and bigger cars, and not everybody needs to run out and get bigger houses and keep them hot and keep them cold, and buy 4 telephones and buy a new one every year so you can throw them out every 6 months. That's egoism. That's identity with body mind. So the solution to the troubles of the world is not politics, not ethics. The solutions to the trouble of the world is you eliminating your ego, being content with a room, being content with a bicycle or nothing, being content, with one set of dishes, being content with, 5 shirts, 7 pairs of underwear, 7 socks, 1 pair of shoes, and even in places of the world, that's excessive. But you see, it's ego that's continually collecting. I had that dream, remember? Again, it was sand on the beach, and it was everybody on the beach was gathering sand into big piles, and they were all fighting with each other, because as soon as somebody would leave their pile to go grab more sand to put on their pile, the neighboring guy would grab some sand from their pile and put it in his pile. And so it was all of this. I saw the whole world was just grabbing sand and just trying to collect sand. But they were on a beach of infinite sand. But everybody was gathering it for themselves. This is my sand. This is my sand. This is my sand. And that's the nature of the universe. You're gathering dream stuff. You're in the dream trying to mine for gold. You're putting a huge amount of effort into it, and you're suffering for it. And you're very happy about all the gold that you've gotten. But when you awaken, you'll be like, there was no gold. There was no reality to that. What have I done? I wasted my whole self pursuing these things. And all it turned out to be was potting soil, So Thakur's trying to warn you about that, trying to protect you from that. All right. So that's what he's saying here. This idea of the Brahma Samaj is asking that exact question. Well, what about caste and women, the status of women? You know, if men would stop viewing woman as the source of pleasure, you know, the condition of women would greatly improve. You know, if we would stop looking at ourselves as stronger than women, you know, and see ourselves in women, and understand by not identifying with our body that women are not gender, male is not gender, I am neither of those, I'm free beyond both of those, then we begin to treat each other as divine. And namaste would start to mean something to us very deeply. Then women's troubles and all of the politics around it would be eliminated, would already be taken care of. We don't need more rules. We don't need Congress, good God. We don't need Congress to make another, you know, law about these things, make another statement, get another committee running. We just need to know who we are. I'm not a man. I'm not a woman. I'm not gay. I'm not straight. I'm a spark of the divine love, the spark of divine wisdom. I exist. And just remain in that place, and you will act out of love, and you will act out of wisdom, and the troubles of the world will resolve. Now, is that going to happen? No. Why not? Because Mother enjoys the play, as you do. You enjoy the play, and so we play. And Mother says, as long as the child is playing in the playroom, Mother will let the child play in the playroom, and she'll do her own thing. But as soon as the child is done playing and calls out for its mother, then the mother will run and pick up the child and carry them. And so that's what Mother's waiting for us. As soon as you're done playing with the imaginary, rearranging thought after thought within the mind, choosing some, rejecting others, as soon as you're done with the puzzle of the five, I call it, the puzzle of the five, the game of five, you know, everything that you can possibly enjoy in this world has only five components, your five senses. How many combinations of five do you need before you realize there's nothing there, right? Just understand they're all just combinations of five, and be free. Stop running after them. All right, we're already after 8. Yes.
Swami, you said something about multiplicity. What was that? That statement?
Yes, the multiplicity, to not seeing, to not, the final truth of Vedanta, they say, or the final truth of religion is one without a second. When all the egos dissolved, God alone is. We all will see that, know that, and we will know that was the only, that even our substance. When he says God is the only thing with substance, he means you too, you know, like that your ego has no existence. It doesn't exist. Yeah. And so that's why it's always insecure. That's why it's always hungry, because it's constantly trying to shore up its sense of existence, when in fact it doesn't exist. There is nothing there. It's just an attachment to a thought or to a group of thoughts. And so this world of duality appears when ego identifies with particulars. When the self identifies with particulars, the ego forms, the ego manifests. It's suddenly there. And that's the I of the worldly man. That's who he is. And that's the cause of multiplicity. That's the cause of desire. That's the cause of aversion. That's the cause of hate and love.
Oh, that's why they say that ego is the main problem, basic problem. Okay.
Yes, ego is, you know, Thakur says all of this comes from lust and greed, right? Lust and greed is the form, is how ego is formed, because both of them are, it's lust is identity with the body, greed is identity with the mind, you know? So it just goes on.
Thank you, Swami.
Sure. All right. That's everything. Well, that's 2 paragraphs, actually. All right. Very good. Oh, remember, Thursday night's class is going to be tomorrow night at 7 p.m. And the recording of tomorrow night's class is going to go up at 7 on Thursday night. So if you can't be there tomorrow night, you can still come to the class, but go to YouTube. Don't come to Zoom on Thursday night. just go to YouTube, because I'm going to be up in the mountains for a couple of a night there, and I won't be here. All right.
Are you camping, Swamiji?
Yes, I'm going camping. I am.
We never did it here. Enjoy.
I will for sure. No doubt about it. All right. Oh, and it's in September, we're going to have another one of our retreats. And so think about September. It'll probably be the first or second weekend in September, I'm imagining. We'll let you know with that. But it'd be great to have as many of you as want to come this time.
Oh, wow. Okay.
All right.
Thank you, Swamiji.
All right. Be well.
Enjoy, Swamiji. Thank you.
Indeed. Yes,
Thank
indeed.
you. Namaste, Swami.
Namaskar.
Namaskar, Maharaj.
Bye.
Namaste, Maharaj. Pranam. Thank
All
you.
right. Jai, everybody.